Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a Ukraine war sort of breaking news update. It's breaking because although this has been ongoing for some time, it appears that the Belgian Prime Minister has come out and very forcefully rebuked the EU over the 140 billion euro or potential 140 billion euro loan to Ukraine using the frozen Russian assets funds locked up by Euroclear in Belgium. Belgium are the key, it appears. Belgium is the key, it appears, to Ukraine's receiving all of that money. And the Belgian Prime Minister is saying at the moment, no. There are two sides to this argument. Of course, Belgium is getting a lot of blame, but arguably this could be coming from the EU's not understanding the risks involved for Belgium. Anyway, before we get into it in more detail, please remember to like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already done so. If you have, thank you very much. Okay, let's get into the details. So we have the Belgian Prime Minister says using frozen Russian assets could derail Ukraine peace deal, which is an interesting way of approaching this. Holding that money kind of hostage over the deal might be one way of looking at it. For example, No Report says Belgium is once again holding up 140 billion euros in support for Ukraine. Prime Minister Bart De Wever told the European Commission that using frozen Russian assets for reparations could interfere with signing a future peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. That's his position. Now, as you can see from No Reports is looking to blame Belgium more. What interest does Belgium have here? And there are claims that the Belgians actually make money off those frozen Russian assets remaining frozen and locked up in Belgium. They get some kind of tax revenue from that, which is a nice little kicker. That might be controversial, might be a reason why they are reluctant to see this money moved. But the other argument is that they don't think that Europe understands the risk involved, and they don't want to be the single entity responsible for 140 billion euros of money that goes to Ukraine. If there's any kind of comeback, legal or otherwise from Russia, they don't want to be the only entity left responsible for that money, and they want the EU to understand that. Now, this has been ongoing for so long that I can't believe it hasn't been sorted out more fundamentally. So here we have exclusive EU economy chief urges the G7 to speed up $50 billion in a Ukraine loan. EU Economy Commissioner Dombrovskis is urging G7 countries to fast track the disbursement of a $50 billion loan to Ukraine as Belgium continues to block a separate multi-billion EU plan that would tap frozen Russian assets. He warned the EU can't keep stalling. We need to take concrete decisions. So you see possibly an understanding here from the EU Economy Commissioner that there's not looking like there's going to be any solution to the Belgium issue going forward. So please, G7, can you fast track a disbursement of $50 billion to Ukraine using different methods here? Now, Euroactiv has an article here, Max 25 interprets it. Belgian Prime Minister Bart De Wever has warned that the EU's plan to use and mobilize Russian assets to fund Ukraine risks severe economic and geopolitical fallouts, arguing that the scheme is, quote, fundamentally wrong and would leave Belgium disproportionately exposed. Let's go and look at this article then. Fundamentally wrong. Belgium slams EU plan to fund Ukraine with Russian assets. Prime Minister Bart De Wever warned the Commission's loan proposal risks severe economic and geopolitical fallout that would leave Belgium disproportionately exposed. So in a 4-page letter to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, seen by Euroactiv, this news site here, De Wever said the proposal could damage the reputation of Euroclear, the Brussels-based securities depository holding the 185 billion euros in assets that would be used for the so-called reparations loan. Quote, it would not be just and fair to expect that while the advantages of such a scheme are for all, the costs and risks would be for Belgium to bear, he wrote on Thursday, a day after von der Leyen signalled she was poised to table the legal proposal. De Wever's stinging rebuke heightens pressure on the Commission ahead of a December European Council summit, where leaders must decide how to plug Ukraine's widening budget gap. The loan plan, strongly backed by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, remains the Commission's preferred option despite talks with Belgium that stalled progress at an October summit. Of course, we're now the end of November, so really something should have been done by now. De Wever's letter suggests little movement since then, expressing surprise at what he called a, quote, complete lack of understanding, end quote, among EU leaders of the legal and financial risks. He said the Commission had yet to present any draft legal text, and that an options paper recently shared with Capitals failed to address Belgium's concerns. He reiterated his conditions that EU countries immediately and collectively provide liquidity to cover the amounts held in Euroclear should sanctions on Moscow be lifted, that they share the burden of potential legal challenges. It's the second point. And the third point, that other Western countries holding Russian assets commit to similar arrangements. So it shouldn't just be the Belgian money that is thrown to this. If there are other countries with frozen Russian assets, especially if they are gaining in some way from those frozen Russian assets, I guess it's this argument that, hey, it's unfair, we're the only ones that have to disperse this money. Echoing concerns from the European Central Bank, De Wever argued that the plan could prompt investors to sell EU debt or pull funds out of Euroclear and other European institutions, quote, amplifying systemic risks and potentially destabilizing the euro. As an alternative, he urged EU countries to prioritize unspent money from the current 7-year budget. He also cautioned that rushing ahead with the asset scheme could hinder peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Quote, hastily moving forward on the proposed reparations loan scheme would have as collateral damage that we as EU are effectively preventing reaching an eventual peace deal, De Wever wrote, adding that the bloc must choose between keeping the assets immobilized until the end of the war to support reconstruction or using them now to finance Ukraine's war effort, but not both. So I don't really know myself here now who is to blame here entirely, or maybe it is an element of both. On the one hand, you have those three concerns of Belgium saying, look, we want to share the risk. We want other countries to be taking part in this as well, not just the onus on Belgium, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, you would have thought this would have been sorted out by now. That the EU would have come up with some kind of workable alternative or system of getting this money to Ukraine. Ukraine needs that money absolutely desperately now, more so than ever. So much is riding on it, and yet there are these obstacles from either Belgium or the EU or both, worried about the impact of potential legal attacks from Russia or the destabilizing of the EU economy, of investment, and so on and so forth. It is such a big issue. This is the one big thing that Ukraine desperately needs more than anything right now, because money is the key to procurement, is the key to investment in their defense industry, that they say, look, we've got the potential. We can't reach that potential from the actual, because the gap there isn't like people or capital in terms of machinery and whatnot. It is just money. Money is the difference between actual and potential. We need to realize the potential of our military industrial complex to produce all of these missiles and drones that we could do, and it is this funding that could unlock that, as well as many other things like the continued functioning of the government in Ukraine. So this is so super important. It's immensely frustrating. Something needs to be sorted, and it needs to be sorted out pronto. Anyway, that's enough from me. Take care. Speak to you soon.